Okay, so we are in Micah chapter 3. So the theme of Micah's message alternates between prophecies of doom and prophecies of hope. The theme is divine judgment and deliverance. The book balances God's divine attributes of justice and mercy, and we notice Micah's use of poetry. It's kind of dark, if you ask me, but many figures of speech make his messages especially vivid and create a profound emotional impact. So that was in one of the commentaries I was reading. So this section in chapter 3 is addressed to the wicked rulers and prophets that are in the area. So verse 1, as I said, hear now, O heads of Jacob, and you rulers of the house of Israel. Is it not for you to know justice? You who hate good and love evil, who strip the skin from my people and the flesh from their bones, who also eat the flesh of my people, flay their skin from them, break their bones and chop them in pieces like meat for the pot, like flesh in the cauldron. So those first 3 verses is an example of the vividness of Micah's speech when giving prophecy. The rulers were not literally doing this, but by their evil intent and actions, it was as if they were, like they're just squeezing everything they can out of the people and treating them basically like animals for their own gain. Verse 4, then they will cry to the Lord, but he will not hear them. He will even hide his face from them at that time, because they have been evil in their deeds. Thus says the Lord concerning the prophets, who make my people stray, who chant peace while they chew with their teeth, but who prepare war against him who puts nothing into their mouths. Therefore you shall have night without vision, you shall have darkness without divination. The sun shall go down on the prophets, and the day shall be dark for them. So the seers shall be ashamed, and the diviners abashed. Indeed, they shall all cover their lips, for there is no answer from God. So in these verses, Micah addresses the prophets, letting them know that God knows they are only giving lip service and saying what the people want to hear. Yet if they are not given a bounty of food or provision, they prepare war against those that do not give it to them. And those were the previous verses where they were saying they were just oppressing the people for their own financial gain. Micah is letting them know that God will not hear them, nor will he give them prophecy. God is not going to speak to them any longer. The God will be silent. And of course, such became the case for 400 years until John the Baptist came in the wilderness. Verse 8, but truly I am full of power by the Spirit of the Lord and of justice and might, to declare to Jacob his transgression and to Israel his sin. So here Micah is stating that God is with him and speaking to him. Thus he is giving his prophecy of judgment with truthfulness, confidence, and boldness, because he has the Lord behind him. Verses 9 through 12. I told you this is going to be very quick. Now hear this. So here comes his prophecy against them, the rulers. You heads of the house of Jacob and rulers of the house of Israel, who abhor justice and pervert all equity, who build up Zion with bloodshed and Jerusalem with iniquity. Her heads judge for a bribe, her priests teach for pay, and her prophets divine for money. Yet they lean on the Lord and say, is not the Lord among us? No harm can come upon us. Verse 12, therefore, because of you, Zion shall be plowed like a field, Jerusalem shall become heaps of ruins, and the mountain of the temple like the bare hills of the forest. In David Gusick's commentary, he's saying in this chapter, Micah first spoke to the judges, then to the prophets. Now he speaks to the princes, and the leaders of Jerusalem had false confidence in religious ritual and form. All the while judgment was appointed for Jerusalem unless they repented. This is an example of corrupted leadership, both municipal and spiritual, which we can kind of see going on today. The heads of the people, the judges of the people, the city councilmen were taking bribes, and the county supervisors, the ministry had become a profession. Professional ministers teaching for hire, and the prophets divining for money, and yet saying, hey, the Lord's with us, nothing's going to happen to us, which wasn't true. So the great thing about Micah as a prophet was that he was listened to. In Hosea, we learn that Hosea was ignored. Amos was ignored. They threw Jeremiah in jail for his prophetic message of coming judgment. And in contrast, King Hezekiah and the leadership of Judah listened to the prophet Micah. He was heard in the days of Hezekiah, and revival followed. Then 100 years later, his words were still remembered, and the memory of what happened earlier was used of God to spare the life of Jeremiah. So in Jeremiah chapter 26, verses 16 through 19, it describes how even after the 100 years, Micah had an impact. Jeremiah was spared from death because of how Micah prophesied. So verse 16 of Jeremiah 26 says, "Then the officials and all the people said to the priests and the prophets, 'This man does not deserve the sentence of death, for he has spoken to us in the name of the Lord our God.' Then certain of the elders of the land rose up and spoke to all the assembly of the people, saying, 'Micah of Moresheth prophesied in the days of Hezekiah, king of Judah, and spoke to all the people of Judah, saying, Thus says the Lord of hosts, Zion shall be plowed like a field, Jerusalem shall become heaps of ruins, and the mountains of the temple like the bare hills of the forest. Did Hezekiah, king of Judah, and all Judah ever put him to death? Did he not fear the Lord and seek the Lord's favor? And the Lord relented concerning the doom which he had pronounced against them. But we are doing great evil against ourselves.'" So because of this, because of Micah's prophecy, Jeremiah was spared a death sentence when he was prophesying as well. So it's interesting how everything kind of ties together, and it's carried out through the Bible. So I think that was really a good point. So the prophet Micah reminds us that even when God seems distant and uninvolved, he still cares and offers hope to those who choose to remain faithful to him. So that's the wrap up of that chapter 3. So we're going to go ahead and go into our questions.